Hello, guys. Fight Commentary Breakdowns, Jerry and Cody. Cody from SundownTE, and you guys are watching this on Fight Commentary Chats. So I want to bring back Cody because we have so many things to say about self-defense, combatives, martial arts. Last time we talked about how we need to think about a new paradigm. We can't just stop at the cage fighting type of interpretation of MMA. So we wanted to continue that today because I had an incident a week ago that got me to think about a lot of this stuff. So I will tell everyone what I told Cody kind of in a very weird mode over Instagram because it just happened. I was like, I got to share this right now. So anyways,
yeah.
I was walking to the beach. To get to the beach, I have to get through this park. And as I was at the light, ready to cross the street to get to the park, this crazy dude probably on something, definitely on something. I don't know what he was on. You know, he has his hands kind of like he must have hallucinated, thought something was on himself. He runs into the street when it's red. Okay, so already he's already kind of like, I already noticed that, but he's running into the street, and not only is he running to the street, he runs straight at me, full speed, full speed. So I notice him before he starts charging at me, right? Because he's going like, get it off me or whatever. I hear him say that, and I saw he almost ran straight into a car before he turned and ran straight at me. So, of course, the first thing I do, because I've never had someone charge that fast at me. So, it's a fight or flight response, immediate, right? Most people freeze, but thank goodness I have enough martial arts training, I don't freeze. So I start running. But then I run for about a second, so that's about 4 or 5 steps. So that's about a second, right? And then suddenly I like something triggers me to not run anymore, and I turn, I kind of pivot a little, and I kind of lateral step. So it's like a ghetto type of like half pivot, half lateral step, half jump kind of thing. And I, as I'm doing it, my hands are up. I'm like, okay, I think it's time. It wasn't a proper boxing stance. It was just like, just like a little bit of this. I was like, okay, I think it's time to fight this guy. Because what I realized in that split, like half a second to a second of running, was that he was running so fast at me that no matter what, because of how human physiology is, I wouldn't have been able to get enough speed and time so he could have caught me. So I was like, I could not have him jump, try to tackle me, or I could not have him try to like launch something at me, potentially try to strike me because it was going to land on me. That's why the split second I went back. So of course I shouldn't have turned and ran, but I give myself a pass because it was the first time someone's charged at me that fast. So at least I didn't freeze up, because what happened was after I turned and I was like, okay, I guess we're about to fight, was that he somehow, in that span of me kind of pivoting, he had already kind of decided, okay, he wasn't charging me. So he started charging someone else. And everyone else that he charged kind of froze. Now, it turned out, thank goodness, he didn't attack any of them. He would stop right at their face and like turn. So, whatever he was on, I guess, I don't know. But the key is this was a very potentially dangerous situation, and I'm not going to say I handled it completely correctly, but afterwards I started talking to people, right? And I got many different responses. Some people were like, yeah, dude, just do more jiu-jitsu, learn to jiu-jitsu him next time. And I was like, yeah, but what if he has a knife? And this person actually told me, well, that's why you carry a knife too. So if he's going to get a knife fight with you, you're going to be able to be prepared. And in
You're
my
going to
mind,
start
I'm like,
fencing
no.
with him. You're going to be like, all right, you got your screwdriver. I got my $300 pocket knife, and we're going to fucking do it.
Yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, even if you happen to, under adrenaline, react correctly, that's legally going to be a problem for you, right? So that's why it's so important to think about these things. It's not just from a self-defense or grappling or MMA or jiu-jitsu. You got to think about context where, okay, even let's say it was ruled self-defense, you get into a knife fight with him, you say, well, yeah, it just happened, just by reaction. So you don't show any premeditation or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But still, he could still do something to you. He might give you a cut or something that gets infected. Like, you gotta think about all this. He might have homeless rabies or whatever, he might spit on you. You're sick for like a week, like, you gotta think about
or
all
you get
this
something
stuff.
you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couple things that you mentioned. So freezing, that's important. Freezing, because in terms of the nervous system, freezing happens when the body is so overloaded with stress hormone that it can't do anything, right? Which is different than fight or flight. The actual the what's the word? The completely like the brain reactions basically that don't require any cognition at all, or don't have any cognition at all, fight, flight, or freeze, right? Those are like the basest level. Freezing happens when people are so they're having so much difficulty processing what's happening, and the stress rises, and they're right. They literally have no idea what to do. They didn't have a plan. Since you mentioned that you were one of the only people who like seem to react in any way, that shows you how many people that you're just walking around at any time are just like, they're just like geese, you know what I mean? They have no idea what's happening. And if something happened right in front of them, people always are like, oh, if I saw that happen, I would have jumped in and saved that guy or saved that woman or whatever the case may be. A lot of those people talking like that would just be like staring right at it and be like, oh, because they've never had that experience before. It's completely new. Their brain's literally processing it as it's happening, and they have and then their brain can't process fast enough to like put the body into action. You know. You said you noticed the guy almost right away, or rather, you noticed him way before he made contact with you, right? So that's a win of situational awareness, isn't it? Right? You're able to pick that guy up because you weren't so sucked into whatever you were doing or whatever you're thinking about, that you at least noticed him beforehand, which is huge, right? Because imagine if you had been one of these people walking around at the intersection like this, and bam, this guy's like right up on you right there. You know what I'm saying? Huge difference in how much time you had to at least come up with a plan, be like, oh, what's this guy doing? Does he have anything? Trying to get a read on the situation, what your next move is going to be, right? You said you weren't able to like pick up a stance or anything. That's, I mean, how many times do you practice, your 1-2 jab cross on somebody that's beside you, right? Almost never. It's always here. You got to turn and reorient, because you always train with somebody in front of you, right? That's another like martial artism that people that it just becomes so assumed that the bad guy's going to be right here versus the guy's going to be right here, or he's going to attack from some other angle, right? That I haven't looked at, some uncleared space that I haven't seen, right? So, I mean, that poses serious challenges, right? The whole stancing thing. When it comes to shooting and stuff, there's a lot of talk about stance and where you put your feet and stuff like that. But the thing is that gunfights are so fluid and so dynamic that it's rare you're ever going to be like perfectly squared up in the ideal range shooting position. Right. You could look at martial arts stances the same way, right? What did Musashi say? That one of the best stances is just like a pretty relaxed, neutral stance, because that's probably going to be where you're going to be fighting from, right? If at least an attack is sprung on you, right? And then there's the whole dueling thing that you mentioned, where this guy's like, well, if he's got a screwdriver or an edge or a point or something like that, just pull out your own edge or a point and you can just duel him. It's like that's not really a solution, is it? I don't want to get in a knife fight with this guy. I don't want to duel some dude with all these bloodborne fluid pathogens that I'm going to get on me, in my mouth, blah blah blah. And maybe I don't want to deal with the police. I don't want to deal with the court hassle, right? It's that sort of like that very sportive or like maybe TMA mindset that people get in, and that's the lens they've learned to see these incidents through, right? Versus versus zooming out a little bit, right? And being like, well, how can I handle this preferably without having to use any like martial skill sets at all, Exactly. But I just wanted to point those. I was taking notes while you're talking. I wanted to point those things out.
Very good notes. And I will mention something too. Cody pointed out very correctly, I noticed him about 2 seconds before he started charging at me, right? Because first I noticed him, and then he charged at the car because the car was right there, because the car was on that side, right? So he charged at a car that was about a second, and then he charged at me, right? So I noticed, so for 2 seconds, I watched his behavior. When he charged at me for the first, like, a quarter of a second, so, like, he was running very fast, so he probably got halfway across the street. This was my thought. I actually was thinking before I just started running, right? The fight or flight kicked in after he got halfway across the street as he was charging me. The first half of the street, when he was coming at me, I thought two things. First, I was like, all right, I might need to elbow him in the face and knock him out. That was like the first an eighth of a second. The next eighth of a second, I thought, maybe I had Chipotle. I was carrying Chipotle, so maybe I'll just like stick my hand out. He'll grab the food and kind of like a football. He'll grab my pass, so to speak, and just run away. So those were my thoughts. And then as he starts coming, he really coming towards me. Eventually adrenaline comes in. You don't think anymore. That's when I started running and then turned right. So it's funny how part of self-awareness, part of all this is exactly like Cody said. You got to be able to step. You got to be able to step beyond this context, right? I'm thinking about, does he want food? I'm thinking about his wants. I'm thinking about my potential, do I want him to hit the pavement potentially if I do end up elbowing him correctly? I was thinking about that stuff. So, that's what I mean. You can't just think about a life or death or fight situation. You have to think legally. You have to, unfortunately, sometimes, even though this guy's charging, you have to think with empathy. Do you want to potentially accidentally hurt him really bad or even kill him?
That's the thing about the streets, Jerry, as we like to call them, because people always approach the streets. This is usually because they lack experience, but they approach the streets with that attitude like, oh, okay, well, I can do whatever I want, but you can't. The rules in the street fight are the local laws, and maybe the fact that you don't want to be in for a 5-figure court case just because you beat this guy up. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or worse, or you don't want to be in the fucking news. There's all these other factors that are going to that unfortunately have to be taken into account, and that's a lot to process when you've got like 2 seconds to decide what to do. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's a lot. That's how even like theoretically really good martial artists get gummed up, is because like you're fantastic in the gym, but when something happens outside of the gym that you're not prepared for, you never experienced it in your life, it's like then the fight's on, and maybe you win, maybe you don't. But there's probably a couple phases before that that you could have decided or you could have made a better call, basically, about how to engage this problem before it actually had to be like a kinetic response. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think a great lesson I'm learning from talking to you right now, Cody, is that most people, if you are in society, which most people are, right, you should probably look up local laws. Just be prepared. Just be prepared. Because, we talked about this last time we had a talk, how one of those incidents that got me out of my slumber and made me realize I need to start training again was that time that dude, remember, asked me for a smoke, and then eventually I realized, this is like a situation. I jumped back and I was ready to fight him, right? There were actually 2 cops that were like a block away. So after the guy left, I went over to these 2 cops. I'm like, oh, by the way, just to let you guys know, there was this guy over there who was trying to mess with me, and I almost had to fight him. Don't in general, be careful when you talk to cops. But again, I wasn't like saying like I was trying to fight him. I was like, look, literally in a self-defense situation, I got threatened. So I was asking the cops. I'm like in the future, what do I do? Like, do I just run to you? Do I they literally told me again, I don't know what cops they are. Okay, I don't know what city, who knows. But they literally told me, they said, oh, you should drop them next time. So, sometimes you can, right? But again, maybe they were just trying to be nice because they saw that I got out of a situation. They were trying to encourage me because, they could tell I was scared. They were trying to make me have more confidence because I'm like, just drop him, right? They could have just been being nice to me, This dude obviously got scared. He got out of the situation. He looks pretty cool. Let's just encourage him. He's not the type to start fights, right? Yeah. Or they could have been telling the truth. But again, you don't know, right? You got to look up the laws. And then even if you know the laws, you never know. What if this guy who you think is just some homeless person who, is attacking you, maybe he's like some rich dude on drugs whose family can hire a lawyer or something. You just never know.
Mm-hmm. The funny thing about the cops that you mentioned is that you really have to try and understand, at least dig up some local data on crime statistics where you live, right?
Yeah.
For example,
Yeah.
I know what the most common type of crime in my neighborhood is, right?
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
what I'm most likely to face or what's most likely to happen to me.
Yeah.
Most people have no idea. I'm not saying that makes me better than anybody or whatever. I just like a lot of police departments have this information right on a web page index that you can go and look
It's
at,
all there.
right?
Yeah.
And for example, when those cops right there working that beat saw you and had that question, they're probably thinking, you know, oh my God, it's one of these shitheads that we're always picking up off the streets. That's always roughing people up or trying to run scams on people. And to them, if you would knock that guy out, maybe they would have just hand waved it and been like, yeah, he probably deserved it, right? Because they're so sick of dealing with that guy, blah, blah, blah. That's all part of the context of the fight, isn't it?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's why we always say, like, you know, you got to kind of zoom out a little bit, try and see these things in a way that's big picture and that's outside of the normal frame of, okay, how do I win not only this fight, but how do I win the fight, the pre-fight and the post-fight, which is the legal battle, the legal issues, right?
Yeah.
All these factors are like super, super complicated and heavy. They can be boring. That's the stuff that people don't like to do, but in a sense, it has to be done. At least you don't have to be like a black belt in legalities or whatever, but you could at least be a blue belt, you know, and understand your local use of force laws and look at how the court system handled issues that you feel like you're personally that you personally faced in the past. You could look at how the court in your area handled past incidents like that, right? And just kind of build like a profile for yourself and the risks you're likely to face. And that can help you have like a tier of decisions, you know, that and help your preparation basically.
Yeah. Such great things that I'm learning from Cody. And one thing I did do after that incident in 2017 was I actually did, because the really sad part was the area where it happened, it was going to be potentially 2 blocks away from where I was planning to live. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to live in this area, and do I have to be prepared? So I actually looked up the crime statistics in that area, and exactly like you predicted, Cody, most of the crimes in that area were either assaults or thefts.
Yeah.
And usually the thefts were thefts of a moving vehicle, so like someone breaking into a car or something, right? Yeah. So like if assaults and thefts are the main thing, then I guess cops are so tired of dealing with, you know, some punks or whatever always trying to rob or hit people. Maybe in their mind, they're like, if only people just defend themselves more, we don't have to write up and then have to follow these leads and like not find anyone, you know?
Yeah, that dude got his fucking teeth knocked out more. Maybe he stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now, of course, you can't count on factors like that, but those play into it and they change how that entire situation unfolds, don't they?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's important.
And, you know, the area where this guy charged at me, right? It's used to be, at least pre, you know, all this craziness, used to be pretty safe. So probably it's different here, right? You can't just go around like, oh, it was self-defense. I knocked him out. You probably wouldn't be like, so yeah, these are all things I need to look up because it's really interesting and it deserves to be scrutinized. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like if it's sort of like, you know, taking your martial arts training really seriously, and neglecting like your basic first aid or stuff like that, right? I realize not everything is exciting and not everything is fun and it's stupid. I don't like doing the boring stuff either, but at the same time, if I want to be at least competent and knowledgeable at everything, that benefits me greatly, so that if I'm faced with this or that situation that I'm at least a little bit prepared for, I've at least got a game plan. I don't have to make it up on the spot. Right. And I'm not caught totally unawares and totally unprepared, because as we're talking about before, when it comes to stress responses and stuff like that, that could cause me to hesitate in a way that might get me hurt or something along those lines. You know what I'm saying? It never hurts to be prepared, and trying to make it up on the spot is usually not that great of an idea, you know? If you're willing to take the time to invest in yourself and do the martial arts stuff, you should at least have a little bit of time that you can take to research your local legalities, maybe even call up a local lawyer and get a consultation for like 45 minutes or whatever, and have him bring up some of those issues with you and talk about what a court case for that might look like, that sort of thing, right? And if you're willing to spend a couple hours a week doing martial arts stuff, it doesn't take a couple hours a week to get at least baseline knowledgeable about legalities and stuff like that, does it? Right? You might only have to look at it once, and that information is good to go, right? But you should at least take that time to invest in your preparation that way, right? Don't just. What I'm saying is, it's hard to not just do the cool guy stuff sometimes, but you do owe it to yourself to try and understand the full spectrum of these issues, right?
Exactly. So I have another self-defense story. Actually, I have two more, but I'll tell my next one. I'd love to hear some from you, Cody. But I'll tell my next one because this one happened about a month or two ago. I think it was a month ago. Honestly, I've lost track of time in 2021, but I think this was a month ago. So there were these two guys over there in the park. Again, the park I go through before I go to the beach. They were trying to stop moving cars. I don't know why. They didn't look exactly like they were on something. They could have been on something, but they were parked there in a pretty nice car too. And they were like trying to stop moving cars on the street, trying to either sell them something, or maybe they were just like trying to practice like doing social experiments, you know what I'm saying? Like stupid pickup artists try to do these things. They might have been like a aspiring pickup artist or something, but to the extreme. Anyways, me and two of my friends were walking on that same side of the street that I was walking on when the other guy charged me. So on the side of the street that's the residential, not the park, right? One of them, still in the middle of the street trying to stop cars, comes towards us. He's pretty chill. And, one of my friends grew up in the hood. So, he's fought a lot street fight wise. He doesn't have training, but he's got street fight. So he's immediately like me. Now here's something, okay? I'm not saying what I did was right either, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I did versus what my hood friend did versus what my non-hood friend did. So, we got a guy who trains, a hood guy, and then a guy who doesn't train who also is not hood, okay? So I get very far away, so even if he charged me, I would have enough time to react to sprawl or whatever, and I'm bladed, okay? My hood friend also just naturally knows distance because he's been jumped so many times. So he's also within like 2 kicking ranges away. So he's like about the same range as me, but he's squared off to him, right? Because again, he might not know different things about angles and stuff. My friend who's not hood and doesn't train, he was within punching range of the guy, just like chilling, like, hey, what's up? What's up? Yeah. And then, so, the guy talked to us for a while, asked us about Elton John or something dumb. And then, like, eventually tried to sell us a purse or something, and then kind of, like, left or whatever. But as we were walking away, I was joking with my hood friend because, we're all chill, right? I'm like, dude, our friend here, this other friend was in punching range, right? So the reason I explicitly mentioned that I was kind of bladed was that we also have to take into account, and this is something that Mark Phillips talked about in Fight Science. Shout out to Mark Phillips. Sometimes if you get too kind of like I'm guarded, that actually ups someone's, depending on their psychology, right? It ups their kind of wish to engage you a little bit. You're like, you got to be careful sometimes of your body posture. So maybe I was actually being a little too aggressive with this guy, then I was already far away. Did I really need to be kind of bladed? Right. So I'm not saying I was doing it right or wrong, but it's just something I'm presenting to everyone watching to think about.
Yes, it's important to consider and most importantly control the signals you give off in a situation like that as well, right? Because somebody who depending on the context, somebody might key off of that posture and the squaring and stuff like that and be like, yo, what's up? Like, you want to do it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody might interpret those messages, and as you say, it kind of becomes this like mutually aggravating circumstance, right? So you got to be, as you're aware of it, obviously, but you got to be careful with that kind of stuff, right? Because it can and does happen. Same thing with like people who take too much of a step back and look like they're about to throw something or whatever, right? That might be the wrong signal to send, versus one of just something that's like calm and neutral and just like keeping a reasonable distance, but isn't trying to be like combative or whatever. Because somebody who's, you know, out there just running like a scam, or maybe they were trying to set people up for something or other, and you know, if you embarrass that guy, or you make him look like a pussy in front of his fans or something like that, ooh, that could be an issue. Right. So it's as like I said, it's context is king in these incidents. But all we can do, like I was saying on the Discord the other day, is we can try and distill these things down and take core lessons from them, which is obviously what you did.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for those of you watching, just think about your body language too, right? Because like there's a difference between this versus this, right? You got to really think about it through. Again, what I'm telling people is don't get paranoid, but if situations happen, use them as great opportunities. Don't ever let situations like this pass and you don't think about it, because you don't want to be afforded more quote-unquote potential learning experiences like this. Every time you have a situation like this, it's risky, okay? So learn something from it. That's the whole point of why I share my stories. Like, I haven't gotten into too many fights as a younger person, but I have. So every single one of these fights, you have lessons from them. Don't forget about them, right? They're valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of run the reel back and pick up this or that. And like, that's one thing I do from training is I really like run through the reel. If I have video of something, I play it over and over. I think about stuff over and over in my head, and that helps clarify small things that maybe I felt like this worked, but I couldn't exactly tell you why. Then I have to think about it. I got to bounce it off a couple people, and then we kind of science it out together why this worked or this didn't work, or why this positioning was successful and this one wasn't, that sort of thing. It never hurts to kind of like lab it out, even in just your own head. But talking about that kind of stuff in like an open forum too, with people that you trust and people who have credibility and stuff like that, that can really help clarify some of those things that you might have missed before too. Well,
exactly.
Right.
And the other thing to mention, to emphasize, there's always idiots who will be like, oh, you guys think you can fight. You guys think you're badass. It's like, no, that's not the point of all this, okay? It's not gloating. We're not trying to gloat. Like, I don't want to get into that situation. In fact, I admitted I didn't do everything right. So watch this for what it is. So anyone that kind of can't understand this, you guys should just leave.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I'm not trying to get bogged down in that level of bullshit, right? I'm trying to elevate the tier of the conversation that's happening and really science out why and how these things play out the way they do, and how we can be more prepared in the future and stuff like that. Bringing it down to that level of bullshit is like, it's not really what it's about. If that's your takeaway, that's fine, but it'd be like that sometimes, as we like to say, Jerry.
Exactly. Exactly. So Cody, let's talk if you have any self-defense stories that happened recently or anything like that from your end.
Well, let me think. The one I was actually thinking of talking about was from way back.
Mm-hmm.
And because that was when I was in when I just gotten out of high school. I did some stupid shit, I partied, I hung out with weird people and stuff like that. I ended up getting in a couple incidents with them and stuff like that. It wasn't anything like super, super dangerous. But it also wasn't stuff that was completely non-dangerous, if that makes sense. One time me and my family, we were road tripping through the States, and we were, I don't want to make this too long. We were at a hotel, and there was these two little, just like ratty, like, I don't know what to call them, like just these two white trash motherfuckers hanging out in front of the hotel, harassing people as they walked by. And they turned out to be staying there with their parents, just like I was staying there with my parents on the trip. Well, my sister, who's a little bit younger than me, she was going into the hotel from the car, and when she walked by, they tried to banter with her, and they were a little bit hostile. You know, they were rude, a little bit threatening, a little bit crude. You know what I'm saying? And I could kind of hear what was going on, but you know, she told them to fuck off because she's like that. And I was kind of like, what's going on? You know, I walked over and I was kind of like a little bit behind her. She was already inside at that point. And I walked by these dudes and I was like, yo, what's the fucking problem? You know? And because I was like 19, I was dumb as fuck. I would never say that this was like a well-handled self-defense situation at all. But you know, this dude yapped back to me and he said something that was like, could be perceived as a threat. I don't even remember what it was, but I was kind of like, you know, stupid, like teenager. If I remember correctly, I had either just started doing MMA shit as well, like just started doing wrestling and grappling and stuff like that. And I thought I was a fucking stud, right? So this dude, you know, comes back with just like typical like street bullshit, right? So instead of just being like, yeah, fuck off, or just ignoring it, I went over and got in his face, which I don't recommend. But I mean, it was like here, like he was like right here in my face, right? And because I had no judgment. Like I said, I was like fresh out of high school, was full of testosterone, thought I knew how to fight. And I went over and got up in his grill. And like I said, there was two of them, right? There was the main dude. I don't know what it was about him. Maybe he just reminded me of kids from like my younger school days that just I was always getting into it with. And for some reason, that dude is just to look at him fucking pissed me off. So we kind of like stepped back and forth, circled around each other. And then when the range broke like just a little bit, he threw, can't remember if it was a left or a right, but he tried to hit me with his hand, and it gave me like the hillbilly headlock where the hand went around my neck like this. And then he just tried to like, and then he was like, well, I guess I got him in a headlock. So he tried to pull me down like that. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because when the fight started, his other buddy actually ran away.
Wow.
So he didn't even get involved. So I was like, so my lesson from that was that I'm such a bad son of a bitch that I just scared the shit out of him. And it was a one-on-one after that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I have no idea. Maybe that dude was just a complete pussy and he was like, oh my God, this is a fight now. I got to get out of here, right? Mm-hmm. So the dude tried to pull me over in that headlock like that. I reached around in front of his face. I literally stuck my fingers like right in his nose like this, ripped his head back, and then just kind of like stepped in behind him. Like it's actually quite a traditional, like old school samurai jujitsu shit, right? Like pull the head back by the chin and just like stick your foot, like your leg in behind him and just kind of like bump him over your leg. That's what we did. So he landed fucking back of his head on the ground, boom, like that. We went over, but he still held on to my head. But it's funny because this is actually like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu headlock escape. He was holding I was like on his back almost. He was holding my head and I was inside, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So when he kept trying to pull me over him, I just kind of like shucked his arm off my head, putting him in just like the worst, just disgusting, like WWF level, like sleeper hold. Mm-hmm. Squeezed it on the back of his head until he like started turning purple. Wow. And then he was like, stop, please. Like he was like begging me to fucking stop. And I was mad at that point, right? Because I was like super hot headed back then. Yeah. And I just wanted to pop his fucking head off. But whatever, like my senses came back to me and I let him go. And then it's just funny because like the talk about submissions like in the streets is always ongoing. And what do you do? Like, do you actually like put him to sleep? Do you actually break his arm? Like blah, blah, blah. I should have put him to sleep because as soon as I let him go and got up, guess what? He popped right back up like a fucking zombie.
Trying to fight you again. Yeah.
And got right back in my face. The problem is that he was like this. He was like,
yeah, wobbly.
Like he was, and I was like, oh, okay, this is over. Yeah. So I just gave him a shove off me.
Yeah. And
then walked into the hotel. And of course I was like playing it all cool and shit, but I was like vibrating, right? I was like, oh fuck. And that could have gone seriously like so incredibly bad for me
yeah.
that it's like, you know, like I literally might not be alive if this had been a different situation, right? But like after that happened that day, I was like, oh, I felt like I had two dicks, you know what I mean? Like I was just like hot shit, beat this guy's ass right in the streets, you know, blah blah blah. But it was like incredibly fucking stupid for me to have first gotten involved in the fight like that, and then to just well, you know what I'm saying, without belaboring the point. And but I don't know if I would even call that like not necessarily a self-defense situation, because I basically opted into a consensual fight in the streets.
Yeah,
which is
that almost feels like a mutual combat situation.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, technically, he was threatening your sister, and then he kind of threatened you. But still,
there was emotional content.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously, it was in a situation where I was literally expecting to fight two guys.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And it turned out that I didn't have to, which is very fortunate for me, because it would have been a wrap.
Yeah.
Even if I had dominated the first guy, his buddy could have just come up and kicked me in the fucking head, or whatever the case may be. All those street fighting memes that you hear about literally could have happened to me right there.
Yeah.
And I consider myself fortunate for not having that happen, right? But I literally did basically opt in to combat right there, you know, over some pretty stupid shit, right?
Yeah, and a great kind of thing to emphasize hearing your story is sometimes the people in your social circle, in this case your sister, you gotta sometimes give them a talk. Be like, sometimes don't, if you're gonna be escalating with people, don't get me involved, right? You know, she's your sister, right? So you're gonna protect her, but
yes, of course.
Yes, it's bad to be disrespected, but she also escalated it a little and then got you involved, and you were picking up after her, basically.
Yeah. The other side of it, Jerry, is that I bet those guys had a fucking talk afterwards, because the other guy ran away. Ran away when the fight started. So one guy's probably like, dude, you didn't back me up. And then the other guy's like, dude, why'd you get us in a fight with that guy? He was bigger than both of us, you know, which I was. They were like, I was pretty skinny, but I was about, I was a good couple inches taller than the other guy. And same with the other dude, right? They were both just these little motherfuckers, right? But like I said, that's kind of maybe fuzzy with like the self-defense specific things. Fortunately, I've had in a lot of these situations I've been in that could have turned into some kind of self-defense issue. I was fortunate enough to have had training from my coach, Craig, that put me in a place where I could avoid those types of situations way before they ever turned into an actual like encounter, you know? So other than stuff that's happened to me at work, where there's an expectation that, you know, use of force could be part of the equation there, I haven't been in that many like street self-defense issues, or I was able to spot them beforehand, like oh, that dude over there looks like he's trying to eyeball some victims or something like that, you know, let's just cross the street and let him fuck with somebody else, or whatever the case may be, you know. I credit that mostly to Craig's preparation.
Yes, Craig from Shivworks.
That's right.
Yes, awesome. So we've given Craig a shout out. We've given Mark a shout out. Cool, nice. I'll bring up one more thing.
Shirt, by the way, this is like Shivworks code.
Shivworks.
With the Billy Go. This is a reference to a drill that we do in every like baseline Shivworks class, where you learn to fight for head position. And these are his fighting knife designs at the bottom here. The crossed clinch fix, but it's the shirt's relatively well coded, so you might look at it and you wouldn't really know. But anyways, I'm a Shivworks boy, as you know. So
yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna bring go back to the previous show. I'm gonna bring up one point that is very necessary, which is those two guys afterwards had a talk, right? And this is a general life lesson. Examine who you're around, because one of the best things I heard from active self-protection, giving him a shout out, is don't be in stupid places doing stupid things at stupid hours with stupid people. You know, I'm paraphrasing it. Sometimes you got to examine that. you know, it's not about backing your friends up sometimes. It's like, why is this friend getting me into a situation where I have to back him up, right?
Yeah.
I hung out with a guy once. I might have told you the story before, Cody, but this was this idiot. I'm just calling him an idiot. I don't care if he hears this, who literally every single person we were encountering that night when we were just bar hopping, he was either about to get into a fight with or starting something with or trying to like mess with. It was annoying. So, do you blame me for blocking that guy, never hanging out with that guy again? I literally, at the end of the night,
people like that in your life,
yeah. I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not like, I literally left him. I ditched him, and his bike was still at my place. So I had to be like, yeah, dude, here's why I ditched you, because this, and that. He literally like, I guess he was angry that at the end of the night he didn't, like, wasn't able to have some girl or something. So he like ran back into the bar. I was like, well, okay, you're gone now. Bye bye. And he's like, where'd you go? I'm like, dude, you just ran back in the bar, and then my phone died. So of course I left. What am I supposed to do? Wait for you? Like literally, when he ran back into the bar, there was actually a fight going on right outside too.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad those days of mine are over.
And what I realized was this dude, it's not going to change. He's been to prison before. Of course, that wasn't completely his fault. But he went to prison, and he has a metal plate up here because one time he got into a fight and got a beer bottle or something smashed on his head. So,
oh my god!
Between those two incidents and me hanging out with him that one night, I think it was a good decision to not hang out with him anymore. If he's ever going to try to hit me up, I'll block him again. It's like you got to be careful who you surround yourself, especially if you're the one. It's okay to run away and yes, honor, friendship, etc. But why is your friend getting into a situation like that? So like if those two people that got into a fight with Cody back in the day, if they're still friends, you guys really have to think about this. Hope you guys had a good talk and you know.
It's funny you mentioned the getting hit in the head with the beer bottle thing, because that almost happened to me once, and it was when I was the same age as before, like when I was in that college age, basically, right? That was when I did all this stupid shit, hung out with stupid people, we went to stupid places and all that. And I was at a house party with my boys, and the hours were creeping up, it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's fucked up. And I was just like, getting ready to go actually, and just talking with this other dude in the front living room, waiting, because I was just waiting for my boy to come out of the bathroom so he could drive us home. And I was sitting there talking with this dude in the front room there before I got my shoes on, and he's sitting there holding the bottle, just neutral, whatever, talking shit, holding an empty bottle in his hand. And I was so drunk that I kept, like, unfortunately this happens to me, but I like spit sometimes. Like I spit on people when I'm like super, super loaded. I just kind of have that froth mouth, I guess. Of course,
I've done that. Without even being drunk. I'm sorry.
So I ended up spitting on this dude, and I could see, like in slow mo, like the little gobs coming out, and just because he's standing from like me to my phone, like we were close because we're drunk talking, right? I'm literally spitting in this poor fucking guy's face, and I didn't want to do it. I was like, oh my god, man, I'm sorry, like do it again. Oh, sorry, brother, sorry. And then I did it enough times that he actually like cocked up his hand and tried to hit me with the bottle. Like he didn't. Wow. He did like he swung this hand at me like that. Fortunately, like I said, at that point I had some kickboxing, and I was also a little bit too close. So when my elbow came up like this, as you do in like Muay Thai or whatever, picking stuff up with the wing block, he hit me right here with it, and the bottle just kind of like wrapped around and hit me right in the lat there. I was so fucking drunk. I just like overhooked his arm, grabbed his head, fucking fell backwards into guard. Held no bullshit. I pulled guard in like a street fight, and it was a house fight, but yeah. And he just kind of wiggled back and forth. He actually wiggled himself inside, like drunk wiggled inside my guard until I was on his back. I didn't do anything. I was just holding on to him, waiting for somebody to come and like get this guy off me. He wiggled around like this in my guard until he was looking away from me. I started to put the choke on him, like in like the drunk, sloppy way. And I was like, man, I don't want to hurt you, man. I don't want to hurt you. And he was just like, okay, then just like, let me go. And so I let him go. He got up, kind of like just waddled over to the corner, like a little bit, a little fuzzy, and sat down. My buddy came out of the bathroom and he was like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, dude, I just got in a fight with that guy. And I was like, it was such a, it's a lame fight. It's not particularly cool. There's nothing brag worthy about it. It was just a thing that happened to me, and that's it's like a completely different context from the other encounter I described before, right? Yeah. Completely fucking different. Yeah. Different workup, different situation, different people involved, but different context completely, right? Yeah. That's where you got to be careful with the street fight memes and stuff, because it's sort of like every car accident that happens in a different context, right? Yeah. Different people, different place, different vehicles involved, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing with like fights outside of the gym. All of them happen in a completely different way. The workup is different, blah, blah, blah. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. But yeah. Wow. Well, one thing we know is the Muay Thai training you had, even when you're drunk, worked, man. Shows how well you practiced that a lot then.
It was reptile brain. Yeah, literally, like as soon as I saw because the way he was kind of like getting a little agitated, kept raising his hands a little bit, I was like, oh shit. As soon as I saw the wing block is a relatively non-diagnostic, defense, right? So I was just like, left hand, boom, that's it. And because I saw this movement, that's the same thing you do in the gym, right? It was literally like he's attacking with that arm. This arm's going to defend. That was it. I didn't have to think about it. It was good that I had that kind of like lizard brain response on deck, because if I didn't, I would have been like, oh shit, boom, and then it would have been a wrap, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. That's the benefit of training in that sense. And yes, I absolutely used a sport skill that had been cultivated in the gym in like a non-sport fight, right? Yeah. But it didn't happen in the gym way, and all the factors you experience in the gym weren't there, right? But that sports skill, which was valid and honed over time and practice, was there for me on tap, even when I was like just absolutely fucking pissed drunk, at a house party at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So, and that's what makes sports skills great.
Yeah, and that's what makes certain arts better than others.
That's right.
I've had so many people try to sucker punch me. You know how many sucker punch I blocked? Very few.
Very few.
Usually what happens is you get punched and then you launch the block.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mathematically speaking, if you and I are within punching range of each other, Jerry, if you go first, there's almost nothing I can do unless you're awful and I'm like super, like unbelievably fast and good, and my response is just like, look, if I was ready for it, maybe, right? We have this conversation all the time doing Shivwork stuff, and Craig does tons of demos about this, where he stands at arm's length basically, and he touches and he just reaches out, touches your stomach. He'll pick like the fastest guy in the room and do this demo where he shows that he can basically, if somebody is within that punching range of you and they go first, they can hit you first basically every time, right? The only way to manage that problem is first of all with distance, and then second of all having a relatively non-diagnostic response to sudden things flying at your head, right? Yeah. Like you look at the way pro boxers, beat punches. They don't do this karate shit where they reach out and block it with the like that, right? This shit doesn't happen. They fucking. And they parry and they wing block and stuff like that. And they don't, and like and even if they parry, they kind of like reach out like that. They don't like reach out.
Exactly.
That shit, that's fucking bullshit. We see that stuff all the time in the martial arts, right? Yeah. And this is one thing I'm thinking about a lot lately is the style conversation that people like having. I'm kind of getting away from it now because I've realized that all it comes down to is how the training methodology, right? If you were to train all your kung fu, for example, in like a combat sport way against people who really aren't letting you do it, that's going to change the way the kung fu is done.
Yeah.
But it's also going to make it viable for use against people that aren't letting you do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So so really, no matter what style you theoretically do, if you're training it in a way that you're getting that feedback from a live opponent with the intent to fucking get you,
yeah,
almost any art can improve or be really good. Of course, it's going to change, though. That's the other thing, is that, boxing, people didn't create boxing and then be like, oh, this happens to work. But the reason boxing is the way it is now is because it's been informed by hundreds and hundreds of years of practice, and that's been distilled. And also, there's also rules involved. Obviously, that shapes the way it developed. But that methodology helped shape the reason why we do certain techniques, right? Like the reason why you throw your jab with the high shoulder, for example, right? Yeah. Whereas in a lot of karate styles or taekwondo, you see this all the time.
Yeah, of course.
Right. That the proper training methodology can benefit basically any style. And maybe, I don't know, maybe if like the worst, dorkiest kung fu guys worked on their shit in like Fight Club for like decades, and maybe if they've really focused on it and really let it express itself in like real live fights against somebody who isn't letting you do it, maybe it would come out the other end looking fucking awesome and be like totally street viable, right? Or totally sport viable, right? That's almost another conversation in itself. Or that's kind of like, that's a big what if, right? But the thing that makes any style great is basically how you train it.
Yes, 100%. And Cody and I both don't have any kind of like stakes in this. We just want to know what works. That's the whole point about Fight Commentary Breakdowns and SundownTE. We just want to figure out what works, man.
Yeah, I'm not here to get after anybody. Yeah,
exactly. And this is the perfect situation too to talk about another self-defense situation I was in. So, this is a lesson that I sometimes have to remind myself. But sometimes if you're really tired, pay that like $20 to like take a cab or take a Uber. I don't know if they have Uber in Canada. They do, right? They have Uber in Canada. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but this story happened. So I was on a film shoot. I might have told you about this. I was on a film shoot, and I had to get up at like 6 a.m. And so the film shoot ended at like, I don't know, like 7 or 6. And I didn't get on the subway until like 10 or something like that. It was ridiculous. First of all, I shouldn't have gone on the subway. One of the actors, the parents of the actor, she was a child actor, so her parents gave me a ride to the subway station. Yeah, that was already close, so I could have like taken the subway, ridden it maybe to like a safer station or whatever, and just like taken the Uber home. I didn't have to freaking like take this. So I was just like, because it was fun. It was like an experiment. Could I get to a very far part of the film shoot, and completely not rely on really any Uber, right? Yeah. But what happened was, I'm tired, right? I'm really tired. We've been filming all day. So I'm getting some food. There's just some crazy homeless person being kind of sort of restrained by 2 cops at the station. And the homeless person, I guess, just naturally it's like a common kind of misbehavior person at the station. So as these 2 cops are telling him to calm down, telling him to just, hey, what's up? What's going on? That kind of stuff that cops usually grill him on. He sees me ordering food, and he like ignores the cops as they got him pinned to the wall, and he's trying to ask me for food. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm trying to ignore this. I'm not going to interfere in what cops do.
Yeah, like, oh, okay,
yeah. This is different. This is not like, someone's like coming at you. Like the cops are restraining him. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to talk to the cops or him. And the cops actually turn to me. They're like, oh, you don't have to give them anything. I'm like, I'm not going to talk back to the cops. In my mind, I'm like, why are you trying to get the attention on me? Stop. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm not going to smack talk the cops, right? But it's like, why do they do that? But anyway, so I get the food, and I go downstairs to the subway. So in the subway, I get a tap, like a very light tap on my back. right? I'm in the subway car. I get a light tap on my back. And I turn around, and you know who it is? It's that homeless guy that was getting restrained 5 minutes ago.
No shit.
So the cops are like, he's like, oh, I'm not going to call trouble. Okay, I'm sorry. And then the cops let him go. And he comes down, and he like attacks. He didn't attack me, but he attacks me in the back. Yo, what's up, man? What's up, dude? But like, that was a moment. I'm like, I'm so tired that I didn't even have this like animal sense that usually people have. I was so tired. I let him get to my back.
Absolutely.
And I am sure he was testing me. I am sure he was testing me. He's like, hey, by the way, even if he wasn't testing me, he might have been trying to send me a signal. By the way, you're so tired, you let me kind of tap you on the back.
Could have been.
Yeah. And I was like, holy shit. And like, and then like I went to a different car, of course. I'm not going to stay in this car with him, right? And then I'm like, okay, I'm prepared. If this guy's going to follow me, he's going to get kicked. But like I'm not saying this to be proud of myself. I was so tired. I let someone just like, hey, what's up, man? I let someone tap my back, dude.
Yeah.
I was so unaware. That's usually not me, but I was so tired.
Yeah. And you didn't have the presence of mind, to like even lean on something or, you had that degradation of the faculties that you normally have. And like you were saying about maybe he was trying to send you a message or maybe not. That can be the window that bad guys are looking for, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to look for alert, aware Jerry. They're looking for like weak, tired, sick looking, like that the animal lagging at the back of the pack, right?
Yeah.
That's the guy they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the Jerry they want in this case. So maybe he felt like, I'll just do this guy a little favor and let him know that he's slipping, right?
Yeah.
You got to be grateful for those lessons because in some cases, we get those and maybe we're just like, whatever, right? But there's something there that, like, for example, me dealing with the two guys at once, or almost dealing with the two guys at once, right? It wasn't till later that I was like, oh shit, that could have been like really bad.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I was able to learn that in a way that didn't require me to go to the hospital or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And I know stories, for example, I believe this happened on the Chicago subway, but some guy was just asleep, right? I guess he was tired. He fell asleep. Of course, he wore a big golden chain, so don't do that. Don't wear like jewelry, while you're gonna be asleep in a public place. But at some exit, some station, some dude went up to him, punched him, knocked him out while the guy was still asleep, knocked him out, and then took his chain. Right?
It's fucked up, man.
So that's different. That's different than my situation. Right? I didn't make it that obvious that I was a target, but still, I like what you said, Cody, because let's say he wasn't just trying to, be nice, be like, hey, by the way, you're slipping. Let's say he was actually testing me, right? Yes. He was basically looking at, because he already had his eyes on me because he asked me for food, and then the cops fucking like drove the attention to me anyways, those incompetent cops. But anyways, so maybe he was testing. He's like, okay, let's see what this guy gonna do. If this guy like responds like, or if this guy has one show of fear in his eyes, I'm gonna mess with him, right? Maybe. But like thank goodness when he tapped me, I noticed it was him. I didn't show any emotion. I was too tired, honestly. But like, part of it is I know.
He didn't know that.
Yeah, he didn't know that exactly. I didn't go. I was just like, oh, it's you. And then after I was like, oh, it's you, and my mind was like, oh fuck, but I didn't show it. I was like, oh fuck, this guy. Whether he followed me or not, he was behind me.
That's right.
Yeah, and he kept walking to the end of the car, right? But maybe he was actually paying attention to me, seeing what I would do. So like, you don't want to be like, I'm just gonna ignore him. That's why I went to the other car. Maybe he was like, okay, I'm gonna look at him from my peripheral. If he doesn't move to the end of the car, he's really tired. I'm gonna fuck with him.
Yeah, or he could have been, checking to see what the situation was. With like, if we got any witnesses around. Yeah. He's scoping the scene, maybe deciding whether he's going to make a play or not. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank goodness there were other people in that car, but there were like two others. I remember I served. Usually, to my credit, like before I noticed he was behind him, I surveyed the car, right? I always survey the car to see how many people there are. I usually don't try to be the only person in the car. I mean, sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. Yeah. Like in this case, because I noticed there's this homeless dude, right? I went into a car that had people, but still I didn't notice it was behind me. See, so I still had a lapse. And like, that's one of those moments I'm like, wow, okay, if you're too tired, don't risk it.
Yeah, that's it's funny you mentioned the empty train car, because like I know you as well. We've all seen videos of people getting their asses beat in fucking tax train cars, right? So even that's not always a deterrent sometimes, right? Exactly. But especially, the empty train car, that's going to be a lot less safe. But nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed, as you know.
Nothing's guaranteed. So if you're in stations or in places where nothing's guaranteed, just call that Uber, man.
Yeah, man. It's not worth it if you can get out of there, in a safer and faster way, right? If you don't want to be hanging out in these transitory spaces that can support a crime, you know?
Yeah. And
especially if you don't know the area, if or if you're of impeded cognitive function, you've been out drinking all night or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That's who those guys are looking for. That's who I would look for.
Yeah. It's crazy. Just like what Cody said is so important. If it's not just like you're in places and you're tired, but I hadn't eaten well. That on film shoots is usually bad food, right? So I hadn't eaten well either. So like whether you're overly intoxicated or indulged or underly fed, right? That's another thing. Got to be careful. And then usually when you whether it's going to bars or networking or on film shoots or whatever, you tend to meet a lot of cool people, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to bars and stuff. I mean, Cody, now you're married, so you're not going to do this, but like you're so you meet cute women too, right? So you're thinking about that too, especially if you guys exchange contact information too.
Yeah.
So like you really have to be careful. Like don't be freaking like texting or checking out Instagram profiles. I wasn't doing that, but I was thinking about it, right? That's the difference. Like I don't ever walk like this, but I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, all right. When it gets to like a safer area, when I don't see any threats in the car, I start checking Instagram. I was thinking about it. See?
Yeah. The bar setting. Wow. When you're talking about meeting girls at the bar, whatever the case may be, I was thinking about this news article I was reading the other day about this crime trend in Japan. Where girls will get a guy. This is usually one of like the shadier, like super metropolitan districts.
Mm-hmm.
And what they'll do is they'll get you drunk, or they'll drug you, whatever or whatever modality they use to like get you all fucked up. Mm-hmm. Drop a roofie in your drink or whatever. They'll be like, oh well, you owe us like $3,000, so you got to pay up or else, and the girl might actually be in on that as part of the scam, right? Yeah. Sits down, starts talking nice with you, stuff like that, and then the trap is set basically, right? And a lot of guys will fall for a criminal ruse from a woman a lot easier than they would from a man. And now these days, with gender equality and everything, women are taking part more often in these sort of criminal assault setups than ever before. Yeah. So they'll use the girl talking to you through the passenger side window and getting your attention this way before they beat your ass and drag you out of the car on the other side, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
They'll like, these people are creative, man. They'll use whatever they can think of to get you, and for them that's their fucking job, right? Like imagine how the amount of time you spend in making a fight commentary breakdowns work, for example, right? That could be the amount of time these people spend on what's more or less criminal enterprise, right? Yeah. And being better at it, right? Because that's how they pay the fucking bills. That's how they get their meth and all that shit, right? Yeah. So you got to figure that these people are they might not be like super brilliant, but lions aren't particularly brilliant either, right? Yeah. But they still get their prey.
Yeah.
Right. It's when you look at things through that lens, and the disconnect between what me and you are like, good, moral, upstanding people who earn our money fairly, and we don't impose our will on people throughout the day and stuff like that. For them, that's just like another day at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
gap. That's one thing that makes talking about non-sport and self-defense stuff a little bit difficult for people to understand is that, as you already mentioned, talking about, the people that you've had interactions with, those people live that reality every day, right? Yeah. It's almost impossible for us to relate to them. That's what makes it hard, and that people get into this like, oh, well, all I'll ever need to deal with fights is my boxing or whatever, right? It's like, what if this guy doesn't want a boxing match with you? What if he wants to just stab you up the ass with a screwdriver and then take your fucking wallet and your phone? There's a huge disconnect between us and them, and that's what makes it difficult for us to get a picture of it unless we do our studies, unless we do our homework on it, right? There's I don't know how much time you got left, Gary, but I would like to give one shout out to or a word of respect, I guess, to William April, rest in peace. He's one of Craig Douglas's boys in the ShivWorks envelope who passed away quite recently, actually. And William April did a massive body of work and talks and videos and stuff like that, and articles about criminal mindset, and it's really useful at helping to understand how these people work, what makes them fundamentally different from you and me. It's William April, Aprill with 2 L's.
Oh, I'm looking this up right now.
He does he actually had an Instagram until he passed. Called April Risk Consulting, and that was his brand. His work is up for free on Rob Pincus's website, Personal Defense Network. And William April was basically unrivaled in the game of explaining how bad guys work to non-bad guys, like you and me, man. And if there was anybody's work you should read and digest on that sort of stuff, it would be his, because
this is great. I'm going to start listening to him tonight. Man. This is awesome. Thank you.
So, and for the viewers
rest in
as
peace.
Well,
rest in peace, William.
It's huge value. It's because most people, we live so far away from that lifestyle. It's hard for us to grasp just how these people are operating, right? Yeah. But William was a guy who was able to really, using his exposure and his experience working in that field and stuff, to bring that material to guys like us who are, personal protection oriented and stuff like that. Yeah. And so we can all reap great benefit from it.
Wow. Yeah. And adding on to what Cody's been talking about, especially when you go travel, okay, that is when you definitely do some research. If you're going to go travel, definitely do some research, especially talking about traveling to other countries. You got to know that some countries don't have as much rule of law. And what that means is the cops could be on the criminal side. So you have to be prepared for stuff like that. Doesn't mean don't go if you really want to go. It just means if you're going to get in trouble, it's going to work differently in some other countries.
That's right. Do your homework. Yeah. As Ed Calderon would say, study your endemics. The way things work here is not the way things work in Mexico or Thailand or Japan, for example,
or China. I was in Yunnan in 2009, right? Yunnan's it's a great area because there's a lot of ethnic minorities there in China. Like there's a lot of Thai people. There's a lot of like really cool looking, like they don't look Chinese people down there. But Yunnan's also a big hub for drug running and human trafficking. Sure. So it's a tourist area too. I'm walking the tourist area in Kunming. Kunming's a big city in Yunnan. It might even be the capital, but I can't confirm that because I forgot my geography. But I'm walking in touristy area in Kunming. There's all these cute little girls, like 5, 6, 7, with huge bowls trying to get money from people. And they're like super aggressive, Yeah. You can tell the reason they're super aggressive is they're part of these like gangs where it's like if they don't get enough money, they'll get beat up at home.
Yeah.
Whatever. They probably don't even have them. They got kidnapped there. So in my mind, I ask people, I'm like, dude, why hasn't anyone reported them? And people are like, yeah, because like these organizations, these gangs pay off the local government.
Yeah.
That's how it works in certain cultures. You got to know, right? I don't know because, most of those people, they kind of like stay away from tourists, right? They're not going to do too much to tourists. But like you said, like Cody's story says,
that would fuck up their business as well, right? If they did.
Yeah. But like Cody's story says in Japan, sometimes, and I know people who fallen victim to certain similar stuff, they'll get accidentally kind of like brought to a seedy kind of prostitution house and forced to engage in activities. Tourists too, tourists, sometimes they'll target you. You know why? It's so embarrassing. You're not going to do anything, right? Oh my God.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that was one of the warnings that I read before, because me and my wife went to Japan on our honeymoon, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I read is when you go to, because I wanted to go to the suspect districts as well, right?
Yeah.
And one of the warnings that they get is like, dude, don't go to these, because there's bars fucking everywhere. There's little seedy, little hive corner, pod bars everywhere. And in some of these places, with businesses that operate with, gangsters behind them, or even not, just like low level thug shit, these people might try and hustle you for a bill for like $3,000 because you didn't know what you were buying, or they got you a little bit drunk and then they cracked a bottle of champagne that you ordered. And then tell you about it later, or they just slip a roofie in your drink, rip off your credit card, and then just like leave you in the street out back. Even in relatively safe places.
Yeah.
You can never really assume that you'll be 100% safe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no country on this planet that has a 0% violent crime rate, right?
Yeah.
Or just a 0% crime rate in general. So just doing a little bit of homework will help you prepare and avoid those situations. So, they might not catch you slipping,
Yeah, exactly. I love what Cody said. No matter how safe is, I mean, everyone loves Japan, right? Japan's approval rating among both people on the left and the right in Canada and America are probably like as high as ever. Like Japan's probably the only country that can get everyone to agree that it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
And Japan's also the only country that can get all Asians to agree that's not awesome, but that's another can of worms for
That's right. I was like, well, some people, they call it like, oh, those fucking imperialists or whatever the case may be. Like there's regional, geopolitical history there and all that.
Yeah. But the key is, even Japan, you got to be careful.
Yep.
You got to be careful.
So here's the other thing, Jerry, is that Japan, what do they say? Statistics are like a bathing suit, right? What they reveal isn't necessarily as interesting as what they conceal.
Yeah.
So when you see low crime stats in Japan, for example, does that mean that the police are hiding information? Does that mean that they're getting reports of crimes and they're dismissing it as like, oh, well, she was making it up or whatever? I know people who have been there. One of my friends that's a photographer and an artist. She was there. Her camera was stolen at a train station or something like that, and the police were just like, "How do you know it was stolen?" She was like, "Well, it was." You told going on back and forth with them. They wouldn't. They basically dismissed it as it was stolen from around the train or something like that. And they were like, "Well, you can't really say for sure that it was stolen, so we're not going to clock it as stolen." Right? That sort of low-level manipulation can be indicative of higher-level problems where they just kind of make things go away for the sake of the public image versus actually dealing with those things appropriately, right?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of factors that go into that kind of thing that you don't necessarily see at first glance, right? Yeah. So that's another reason to assume that just because somebody says A is A, well, it might be a little bit of B and it might be a little bit of C, right? Yeah. Just because you haven't, that's another reason to do your homework.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's such a great point. I never thought about how, a lot of times these reports will understate things just because if you make your city or you make whatever your region you're in charge of look too dangerous, right? So there's a quota to everything, just like a cop in America. I don't know how it is in Canada, but a cop in America, I think, has a quota for the number of citation he's supposed to give, right? So like, it's the same. Like, you probably also, to make your city look safer, you probably don't want to give certain types of stats as much. You don't want to enforce them, right?
Yes. Yeah. See, this is the stuff that's kind of like behind the fog of war that we don't see, that gives us a picture that we take as fact, when in fact the reality is much, or may not even much different, but it's different enough that we could be wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
The manipulation of information, all those cultural factors, right? Like I said, the cultural factors of Japan, which values, discipline and unity and calmness in society and stuff like that. Oh, they make a couple crimes go away here. They make a couple crimes go away there. Japan looks great. Everyone feels great about it. Everything's beautiful, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, the truth could be, with what was I going to say? My wife's moving around. I can hear her. I'm like, oh, maybe she needs my help. The truth can be fuzzy, and it's easy to hide, especially when you're the one that controls the information.
Yes.
Right. So that's why I'm always like, is it that safe? It really, does nothing happen? I mean, obviously I live in Canada, which is relatively safe, even in my big city here, but I have this conversation often with people, right? Like I said before, Canada doesn't have a 0% crime rate, so you can't really be like, well, I don't need to train for that specific thing, or be dismissive about your preparation.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a ramble, but I get.
But it's so important too, because I think about China, right? China has these. You could consider them para-police. They're not really police. But they're called Chengguan. Basically, they're kind of like your city administrative kind of agents, and they don't really have arresting power, but they have fining power, and they have like thug power.
So they're sort of like a bylaw kind of force, like they're not like the police, but they're like low-level kind of enforcement.
Yeah, enforcers that I think technically work for the police, but they're like government officials, but they don't have arresting power and they don't carry guns. But for example, here in Santa Monica, there's like on the promenade, for example, right? On the promenade in Santa Monica, there's like these like city officials. They're kind of like that, or like in downtown Los Angeles back in the day, they had like these like kind of like private security officials. But they're like kind of like employed representing the city. So kind of like that, but like more directly representing the city, and more with much more use of force. That's what these Chengguan. So that's what these para-police in China are. The reason I mention them is because in certain cities, there's Chengguan everywhere.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're safe, right? Yes, guns are banned in China, and most cities have basically banned knives too, unless you're like a chef or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or like, knives for personal use at home, it's okay, but don't expect to go outside carrying a blade, in China. But that doesn't stop crime. There's crime all the time, right?
Dude, some of the worst knife attacks I've ever seen or posted have been in China, actually.
Yeah.
And one of them was a Chinese cop killing another cop.
Wow. I think you showed me that one before.
I think I did.
The one in the stairway, right?
Yeah, it's horrible, man. Horrible.
Yeah.
But, that's the difference, right? Between the public perception, the public image, how that information is crafted to give you this idea versus the potentially more dangerous reality, right?
The thing is, most cities in China, for example, and this is why I totally believe what you say about Japan, right? The underbelly. Most cities in China have a big underbelly, huge underbelly, man. You just walk a little bit away from the areas that most people hang out in, dude, it's sketchy. And it's different type of sketch than here in America or Canada. It's not like sketchy as an, I'm going to get robbed, or, it's not like that. It's like, if you want to get in trouble, you will. Doesn't mean trouble's going to come find you. Like, if you just walk through those areas, nothing. But, you see all these like weird establishments, you go in, okay, you're going to get in trouble. It's like that. You see the difference?
Yeah.
It's not like here where like you have to watch your back in certain neighborhoods in like the
Yes.
Western world. In China, and I seem to see how it's like in Japan. It could be a little different, but you know, Japan's much more westernized in a different way. But
Yeah.
it seems to me what I'm starting to see in a lot of these like sketchy areas in Japan is like if you're a tourist and you're looking for adventure, you're gonna get in trouble if you like go to these areas. But if you're just like a casual local, you kind of walk through these areas. You could even be a kid, like a defensive sweet kid. No one's gonna mess with you. Is
Yes,
that kind of like what I'm getting? Because that's how it is in a lot of cities in China. Like there are these neighborhoods, like you can just tell, like everyone sitting in front of them, they're probably affiliated with some gang. You know, like foot massage parlors everywhere. Like, why are there like 10 foot massage parlors in this one street corner? It's because they're giving you happy endings and way more in there.
Yeah. And which is like fucking human trafficking and stuff like that, right? Like tons of those. That's an endemic problem in Japan as well.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, you know, they got their hands in the police pockets. So they're just like, well, as long as you keep paying us, it's not that
That's
bad.
what it
you know,
is.
you can operate stuff like that. It's that gangsterism, you know, that kind of allows that stuff to work. And basically the way you're describing it to me makes me think that every country kind of does crime their own way in a sense. You know, like when we were walking around, like Shinjuku and some of the more suspect districts and stuff. Like, dude, I saw a guy getting slapped around and beaten on the street in Shibuya, like in front of like thousands of people, and everyone just walked by like it wasn't even happening. And I was just like, yo, is that okay? Like, and Kelly and my wife was just like, no, don't get involved. No. And I was like, but that like what, you know, like I was like, I've never seen that sort of thing happen in front of so many people who just kind of like pretended it wasn't happening. You know? And because to them that was normal. That was normal. That was a normal thing for them to see in that area. Whereas for me, I was like, whoa, like that seems a little extreme. Like, what did that guy do to those guys to have them all hustling them like that? And then, you know, I'd around the corner and I'd see dudes posted up on the street, you know, in their like tribal dress, basically, right? Their gang colors or whatever. And I'd be like, those dudes look different from everybody else. Their behavior is different. And I bet you money those guys are lookouts to make sure that nobody else from any other street gangs or whatever is encroaching on this territory, right? Those guys are lookouts for somebody else, you know? And then as soon as they see like, hey, these guys from whatever this district are in our territory, they're going to make a call, right? But that's just for like the locals, right? They probably see that, they probably notice that shit too. But for them, it's just lay of the land. They see it all the time.
I stay out of their way. Right? They stay out of my way, still out of their way.
And like one thing that was funny is for me is like if you eyeball the wrong person in America, we can have an issue. You know. Whereas those guys, like I walked by, dead ass, looked right at them. I was just like, "What's up, fellas?" You know, like gave them that kind of look. They didn't even look at me. They were just like, met eye contact, look away. I'm not their problem, right? They're not gonna fuck with me. They got a job to do. You know, they're looking out for like the rivals. You know what I'm saying? They don't give a shit about me. I'm just some bullshit white guy tourist. You know? Whereas if I did that in America, you know, did that in the wrong place, in a place that would maybe support a crime, something like that, that would have been a huge mistake. Right? And that's just, you know, like it's different culture, different country, different crime as a result, right? It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, man. Oh, this gets me thinking about so much about kind of cultural differences when it comes to crime and stuff like that. I mean, this is great, dude. I'm so glad the discussion kind of went this direction. Man,
it's good stuff. It is.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Like for a while
it's
in
worth
China,
talking about as well. You know.
Yeah, it's totally worth talking about. Most self-defense channels, martial arts channels, never talk about this stuff, man. So this is great.
Because it's not like, oh, how to throw a better jab or that type of shit, right? Of course, that stuff is extremely valuable and is important and should be, you know, part of the discussion, right? But like I said, I like to, ever since I was a kid, you know, I always like to zoom out and try and see more of the factors involved, you know?
Yeah. Besides kung fu movies, I always liked true crime stuff. I loved America's Most Wanted. I love watching this stuff.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
You have to zoom out, think more about that stuff.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Absolutely.
In China for a very long time, you know who would try to suck you in besides, like, of course, having pretty girls suck you in and like do crimes, right? They would use seniors.
Whoa.
Seniors would start conversations with you on the street, and then like they'd be like so nice to you, and then they'd be like, "Oh, we got this like cool club you should come to," or like seniors, man.
Wow.
You would get approached more by seniors than anyone, because like if it was some guy or some young person approaching you, everyone had their guard up in China, right? You know, like China is not necessarily an unsafe place, especially in the early period of its modernization, but it definitely was a place filled with scams.
Oh, you know? Okay.
There's a lot of great things about China, but prior to probably like 2000, I would say 15 or something, everyone was always had zero, what I call them, there's zero general trust and very little social trust. You know, I'm using sociology terms, but there was very little general trust, very little social trust. The only type of trust you could have was like your family, basically.
Yeah.
So familial trust, as you call it. So the seniors. So these seniors, because most Confucian cultures try to be nice to seniors in general. Doesn't matter if this seniors could be an asshole. This senior could be like the worst person ever. You try to at least initially treat all seniors with respect. And even if they kind of have issues, you still give them a few more passes than you would in like other non-Confucian societies, right?
Yeah, right.
So these seniors would just come and just like endlessly hassle you, especially a great lesson in a very kind of self-awareness / self-defense scenario is that everyone, if you think you don't stick out, you will stick out if you're in a foreign place. No matter how much you think you don't stick out, if you're in a foreign place, it could be a different city, in your country, you're going to stick out, okay? You're going to stick out like a sore thumb. Just accept that and take precautions. But these seniors, because they've been in the city for the longest time, they will know immediately that you stick out, and they'll just like a magnet. You'll attract these seniors every day, like one or two seniors. They're like, start talking. You literally have to be mean to seniors, which like is hard for a lot of Chinese people to do. But you have to be mean to be like, look, go away. We don't need you. We're just hanging out. We're just here walking. Go away. You have to be mean to seniors. But that was a big thing. These seniors, and then on top of that, next level, some seniors would prey on people's empathy, so they like fake fall, or like in your case, Cody, like they like see that you're a guy who like cares. They'll like maybe like even pretend like they just got hit by a car. You know, maybe they'll do some kind of act. You go over. Are you okay? He pushed me.
Wow.
He hit me in the face.
Wow.
And then the cops are in on it. So you go to the police station. This tourist hit me. I didn't hit him. Yes, you did. Okay, to avoid jail time, $10,000.
Yeah, that's right. God damn, man, like that's crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
So for a while in China, even if it was legit that someone fell, nobody helped them ever or even checked on them, because the assumption was it was fake. They were going to tell you to pay for their hospital bills or tell you pushed them.
Holy shit.
Yeah, for a few years in China, that was the level of lack of general trust, because a few legit incidents made the entire like helping people like paradigm kind of disappear for a while.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't blame them. You know, I don't blame them.
Right? It's not cold. I'm trying to protect myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The one thing you mentioned about standing out in other countries, you know, Ed Calderon, who I've already mentioned before, the guy that runs Ed's Manifesto, he says if you're traveling to a place that you're not sure how you should dress, blah blah blah, if you're worried about standing out, of course, what's normal for where you live is not what's normal for, like, for example, the people where I live, Jerry, dress one way. People where you live dress a different way. Yeah. If I wanted to blend in with the people where you live, I would go on Google Maps. I'll go to Street View. I would look around. I'd see what brands people were wearing, what styles people were wearing. Did they wear a lot of shorts because it's warm weather? Did they wear a lot of tanks? Did they wear a lot of t-shirts? See if I could spot the brands on the shoes they wear, see the brands from the stores they buy from, that sort of thing. And that might not necessarily make me look the part like a local, because I might not have like the right tan or something like that, right?
Yeah,
but
or
at the
even
very
the right
least it
walk potentially.
yes.
People walk differently.
That's right. Yeah. So if I could even gather a little bit of that information, that might help me, plug myself into that group in such a way that might make me blend in just enough that I would be overlooked by somebody who is maybe trying to run scams on tourists down there, for example, right? There's value in gathering that information. That was one thing I did when we went to Japan, as an example. Is the first thing I did when we hit the streets is I looked at the brands people were wearing, and I instantly noticed, okay, these people love this brand and they love wearing that. And then I would look for some stores and be like, I wonder if I should get one of those. Like, of course, when you're like half a head taller than everybody and that sort of thing, and you're obviously a white guy surrounded by Asians, you don't blend in that much. But at the very least, it would have, if it was in a place where I felt like I needed to blend in, that might have been information I could gather beforehand, and use to protect myself from things that might be targeted at people who don't fit in, or people who are obviously going to have trouble getting help from the police if something happened, that sort of thing, right? That's all. If you were to go to much less safer countries as well, looking like you at least dress somewhat locally could make somebody be like, oh, that guy's an expat or something like that. He probably lives around here. I won't target him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anything to help kind of like lower your profile can be useful.
One thing I thought about immediately is that for people with glasses, if you're gonna travel and be completely safe, I would just recommend get contacts. Get like 1-a-day contacts for your entire travel session, because it's hard to figure out what glasses. And let's say you order them. Can they get there? Can you get the new pair of glasses in time before you travel? It's something I just suddenly thought about, because these are a dead giveaway. Especially I'm thinking if I go to China or go to Japan, I got these at a Korean store, but like I didn't even want to get something that looked too fancy. Like these are pretty like just like regular kind of. They're not ugly, but they're not pretty at all. But like still, most people in China don't wear glasses like this, right? Usually their glasses are bigger. So like I just realized to avoid trying to figure out what kind of glasses I would have to wear to blend in, I would just have to like get contacts.
Yes. Or you have to find some way to gather that information to see what those people like. What kind of brands do they like in China, for example, right? Or even, what kind of brands do they wear in the place you're going to, right? What stores do they have there? What are people more likely to buy from? That sort of thing, right? If you were looking to lower your profile, you might have to dig that deep,
It's crazy, man. It's just, but it's so true, because like I, for example, having really big legs, I walk like I have a lot of muscle down there, which is good. But that's one of the things I'm just so like I have a really weird walk. Like probably only like 10 or 20 people in this world have a walk like mine. So it's weird. So like I realized like that sucks. Like I will always stand out just by the way I walk, which is so freaking. So like I'll have to literally change the way I walk, right? But it's gonna be difficult because people have seen my face all over the world. So no matter what, whether I think I'm anonymous or not, I'm probably not. So that's something I gotta be prepared for. So this is another thing. I'm not saying like, because here's the thing. Everyone nowadays has had their 15 minutes of fame, right? Everyone's got an Instagram, everyone's got a TikTok, everyone's got a Snapchat, whatever. Chances are, unless you've never been on social media, probably some more people know you than you think. That's the really scary part. So that's another consideration from awareness, self-defense angle too.
What's weird is that there have been times when I was out in the city or whatever, or I was downtown somewhere, and somebody looked at me like a little bit longer than was normal, and I'm always like, I wonder if that guy knows me from YouTube or something. Like, is he deciding whether to say anything, or is he like, that looks like that guy? And I'm always, or maybe I had something on my face or whatever, right? But you can never be sure unless you talk to them. But I always have that like lingering suspicion, like I probably talked shit to that dude on the internet, and he's like, "That's the fucking guy right there."
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
There
yeah,
we go, man. Like you really, really never know. It's crazy.
yeah,
So that's another thing. I love one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen you post on your Instagram is what you put on your car, what it actually is saying about you, right? Baby on
yes,
board. What
yes.
does that actually mean to someone who wants to commit a crime? Like little things like that. Your stickers on your. What does that mean? That's
Yes.
something people need to think about.
Yeah, that's how people are gathering information
Yeah,
about you, the way you gather information about them,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And if you're not programmed to look at that information in a way like, because most people are like, oh, this is a nice thing to put up that tells people something about me. Since we don't have that predator mindset, we're not looking at it and how can this be used to hurt me,
yeah, yeah,
right? If you
yeah,
haven't been trained or instructed to look at things through that lens, or for example, to look at your house and see the way you would break into it if you were a bad guy, right,
yeah,
versus the
yeah,
way an actual bad guy would, because
yeah.
he has insight that I don't. uh, there's there's things around that could be either whether we know about it or whether we don't know about it, we're constantly giving off information that people could theoretically use against
Yeah,
us,
yeah, yeah.
that's what's spooky about being like, um about what am I trying to say
Being
about just
in the
having,
potential public eye.
yeah, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah,
just being like, I don't want to call us like prey animals,
yeah,
because
yeah,
we're not, but because I mean we're being preyed upon by our own species, but you understand what I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
just with with villains out there,
yeah,
and we're the good guys, we're
yeah,
not always thinking like that,
yeah.
right? Whereas they could
Exactly.
be, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it is so imperative people think about that. Like, it doesn't mean don't post stuff. I mean, in general, I think we have a culture of narcissism, so don't post as much as you think. I think that's a
Yeah,
general. Nobody is as interested in you as you think, right? I think that's a good little rule of thumb. But
yeah,
besides that, think about everything you post, what it says about you, especially as someone that doesn't have good intentions. It's so true.
yes,
It's so true.
yes,
Unfortunately, being quote unquote in the public eye sometimes. I have another channel that I don't even post on anymore, but that channel was much more personal. Everyone knew
yeah,
me as Jerry. Like most people didn't know me as Jerry on fight commentary breakdowns until last year when I started showing my face more. But like,
yeah,
because my other channel back in the day when I used to post more, I would show people where I was. So like
yeah,
there were people like probably psychopathic people who make up stories about being with me, and the reason they could do that was because I gave enough information that they could string a narrative together, right?
yes, that's right.
I heard this story about a guy who claimed he went to Utah with me. Yeah, I went to Utah once. He claimed he went to Utah, and I was like, well, okay. The only reason he could get away with that was because I made a few videos in Utah, so he could like make up,
Incredible,
fill in the
man.
blanks, make up stuff, right? So I was like, yes, that person got mental issues. He needs to get his head checked, but still, I made it possible for things
Yes,
like that to
that's
happen,
right.
right?
That,
And
that-
being in the public eye, you prepare for unfortunate things like that. If you're not preparing for stuff like that, you need to examine what it means to be in the public eye. But like most people haven't even thought about this stuff, haven't made
no,
these emotional
they've
mental.
never had to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But if you have a Facebook that occasionally has something that's not private, you have an Instagram that's not private, you could get in situations like what I talked about. Some
Yes.
dude might take a picture of yours. One of my friends was a very talented jujitsu. He's a coach. He has a school. He put up pictures of his daughter, right? It's public.
Yeah.
Someone took one of those pictures, put it on his Instagram. And I think that person eventually took it down because he reached out to the guy. He's like, I want to talk to you right now. You taking my pictures of my daughter. But if you put your pictures up in the public, it can end up on some black market. So you just never know, man. You got to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. The other another facet to that particular gemstone, Jerry, is how that stuff could be used against us in court. That's
Yeah.
an issue. Well, lots of like internet tough guys are always posting fucking killer shit,
Yeah.
and stuff that would look pretty bad in front of a jury.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing that we got to be paranoid about as well.
Yeah.
And especially if they can attach politics to something that you did,
Yeah.
or if they could make up some like some racial grievance that you have or something like that, because these people will I mean to say prosecutors will try fucking everything to discredit you after say you bust somebody up. They'll be like, oh, this guy, if the person you were a victim of happened to be of this race or that race, they could easily look at your, maybe not easily depending on who you are, but there's been cases in the States, as far as I'm aware, where they were able to spin a racial hate story about an encounter based on we wouldn't necessarily believe that this attack was racially motivated, except for this thing this guy posted on his Instagram, blah blah blah, that sort of stuff, right? You really got to be careful about that shit too, right? And they could. Even if it's completely untrue, they're going to try as hard as they can to spin it and make you look some type of way. Right.
Yeah.
Got to be careful of that stuff too.
Man. And that's why you really have to be careful, especially when emotions are running high. You know, I think both our countries have had a lot of unfortunate incidents, of course, that have been exponentially made worse by the media coverage. But a lot of people were being very emotional and speaking their minds, which is good. But you have to be careful. Sometimes when you're speaking your mind under emotion, you're not speaking properly, right?
That's right.
So you better be careful sometimes. Like, take a step back, be like, is that something, even during the riots here in Santa Monica, like, I had angry people who are white who are posting some stuff on my stuff. I deleted their stuff, of course, for their own safety. Like, I don't care if you post it, but for your own safety, you got to be careful what you post it. Like, people got mad at me for, I mentioned one business was a minority-owned business, that they got mad at me. They were like talking smack about me for, it's like, okay, that's going to be used against you one day. The fact that you're being that insensitive, like, I was talking about how, like, a minority-owned business got looted, almost got looted. You know, I was like, people, just stop targeting businesses, right? That's what I was saying. And these white guys were getting mad at me. Oh, you just only care about minorities. It's like, okay, at a certain point, I understand where your struggle is, but you got to be sensitive when you like get emotional. Like, I'm on your side. I'm on everyone's side right now. I'm trying to tell people to stop being violent, and you're turning it into a racial.
Because they're having an emotional response as well. You based on what they've seen from other people and other people who are fucking like the race propagandists and stuff like that.
They thought I was trying to spread more kind of like division. I'm literally just saying, look, minorities are getting looted too. Let's stop this. But like, they didn't get it, so I had to delete all their. I'm like, no. One of the guys still sometimes tries to like troll me. He's like jiu-jitsu guy too, unfortunately. So like, he gives jiu-jitsu guys a bad name. There's all kinds
of jiu-jitsu guys, as you know, Jerry.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, jiu-jitsu tends to attract sometimes people who are very too far right, or like also who are very big conspiracy theorists. That's another thing with jiu-jitsu. So
it's got some characters, that's for sure.
It's got some characters, but that's one of those guys. I might even put him. I think I have put him on restricted, just because for his own safety. You know, I'm not the government. I'm not forcing anything, but I still want for other people's safety. I'm not trying to like encourage them to get in trouble, but certain people, you got to be careful. And that's another reason I stepped away from one of my other channels, because like there are too many people not understanding that some of the stuff they say is going to get them in trouble. So I need to just be the grown up, be like, okay, well, I have to be a parent then.
That's right. Somebody's got to be the daddy here.
And I guess it's better me than like the government, right? But that's the problem. Right. If we start self-regulating, that's where freedom starts dying. Dude, it's always a balance, man. And again, that's beyond the pay grade of Cody and I, especially in this conversation about self-defense. But
that's a bit beyond the scope here, but it's definitely related, you know. But
and I think this is a good stopping point. We talked about a lot of great stuff, and I know there's going to be a part 3, Cody. That's why I love talking to you. Like, we think about self-defense situations, Cody, that people don't think about on other channels.
You won't. I mean, I would never put myself above the other guys talking about this sort of stuff, but I consider myself like a little fish in their pond, but at the same time, I just want to be part of the conversation, and I want to help elevate the way these things are discussed, so that everybody can benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because in the end, why do you do this stuff, right? It's to make yourself better, to help the people around you, that sort of thing. So, I feel like it's important to get these things right. And it's not about like flexing on other people. It's about improving. Well, it's like in your gym, right? You don't go there to beat the dog shit out of everybody else. You all go to make each other better so that you can fight the bad guys, right? That's what I care about, and that's what you care about.
Yeah. And by saying what I just said, I also hope this encourages other channels to talk about this too. I'm not telling other channels not to talk about this. I'm not flexing on them either. I'm saying, look at all these cool stuff we bring. We don't have all the answers. In fact, that's one of the things we learn. We don't have all the answers. So I hope
training, right?
Yeah. It's exactly true. So I hope other channels talks about this, and I'm looking forward to learning insights from other channels too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because the more everybody puts their heads together on this, and the more subject matter experts they are, the more everybody cumulatively benefits.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Nobody would ever say nobody who's credible, or nobody who's worth listening to would say I'm the only guy you have to talk to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have the whole puzzle. This is another thing I was going to talk about earlier, but the problem with only listening to one person is that even that guy, even if he's an expert, his own personal experiences have led him to think a certain way about these things, and he doesn't have all the answers. Because his personal experiences are also driven by those particular circumstances and those choices that led him up to that point. Right. That's the reason nobody has all the answers, is that it's not mathematically possible for everyone to have the same answers, right? Especially when you're dealing with this stuff, when there's so many different contexts, there's so many different factors that play into it. That's why it's more important than ever to get a wide range of insights and opinions, and weigh them all against each other, and take value from as many of them as you can.
Yeah, exactly. And going full circle, going back to my first story, illustrating exactly what Cody said. One of my other friends that I talked to about the incident, because he's a boxer, the first thing he said was, "Where were his hands?" The reason I was telling you about this was that, although subconsciously I picked up on it, when I was analyzing until I talked to my boxer friend, I didn't pay attention to his hands. And then I realized his hands were going like this, right? So, full circle. That's why these discussions have to happen. The more brains put together, like Cody said, the more we're going to pick up the right things to talk about and learn about from, and keep improving.
Yeah, the more we pool our knowledge, right? That's what we were talking about a couple days ago, is that one person's opinion may be based on only the very limited amount of circumstances that they've ever faced, right? If everyone else is to base their self-defense strategy on that particular thing, that could be one puzzle piece out of like 900, So I mean, we're prepared for that. But what about all these other things that could happen, right? Because we're limiting ourselves to just that one perspective, That's why, like you said, we gotta pool our knowledge and talk about all our experiences, so that not only can I learn from my mistakes, but you can also learn from my mistakes, and I can learn from your mistakes, and we can lab this stuff out together to make each other better.
Yeah, exactly. So with this being said, this was Jerry from Fight Commentary Breakdowns and Fight Commentary Chats, and Cody from SundownTE.
That's me.
Part 3 coming soon.